Hey guys, what's up? Today we're gonna take a look at the 10 hardest JRPGs on the Nintendo DS that I have ever played. And as always, no only in Japan games. And with that clarified, let's begin! Number 10. Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey. There are several reasons why this game made it to the list. Clearly, it is a grind fest like pretty much every RPG you'll see today, but there's more to that. I think the game having extremely long labyrinths with tons of random encounters, dead ends, and annoying puzzles makes it exhausting. Now, this original version does not have difficulty settings. But even if it had, like its 3DS remaster does, it will still be a pain in the ass, having to constantly worry about healing, having to backtrack, having to know which demons are best for this boss fight, etc. Things like that are what makes the journey so punishing instead of just strange. The press turn system isn't here, so it's not like you'll be able to abuse enemy weaknesses like you usually do. But it does have at least a demon co-op system where if someone strikes the enemy's weak spot, another demon of the same alignment will make a follow-up attack. But yeah, it's tricky, and as I mentioned, you gotta have the right demons for this and that. It can be such a nightmare. Fortunately, this is an awesome game, and it makes grinding more fun than in other JRPGs out there. Nothing, however, changes the fact that it's brutal. And if this is only number 10, imagine what lies ahead. Number 9. Heroes Saga Leviathan Tactics. It's a rather obscure strategy RPG with quite the unique combat. You move on grids with a small group of characters, but each one is a commander known as a hero, with soldiers fighting alongside of them. Every battle takes up 3 turns. On each, you must select between several modes to act, have everyone focus their attack on the enemy leader or the soldiers. No matter what though, you gotta choose at the beginning if it'll be a regular attack, a charge attack, which is basically a critical but with low accuracy, or a phalanx attack, which reduces damage but guarantees the hits. So because it takes up 3 turns, the maps and battles can be somewhat slow and long, but more strategic. The game's got 3 problems that make it so difficult. 1. A combat system where the enemy AI is way smarter than you, so they always seem to know which mode to use against you. 2. No items and a very limited amount of healing spells. Characters have one unique skill depending on their weapon equipped, but some mages can cast a healing spell a couple of times only. However, if your generic soldiers die, they're gone, and you can only add more by capturing these bases and spending a turn in them, which is also where you can heal every turn. These bases level up every turn, but still it takes forever to recover a big amount of soldiers lost. And 3, every single freaking enemy has a special attack that they can use after doing or receiving enough damage. Yes, you can do the same, but if they do it to you, forget it, that unit is as good as dead, including the commander. Many times I reached the boss with only Ernesto, the main character, left alive. Thankfully there's no permadeath, but seriously, the game can get extremely grinding and ridiculous most of the time. Number 8. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor. The original version is straight up insane. The mission requirements often get you killed in such a cheap and unfair way sometimes. Yes, it's an SMT game, so it's grindy, challenging, knowing which demons are best for this and that, blah blah blah. The usual difficulty the series is known for. They're all hard by default, most of them even when you're playing on easy. No difficulty settings exist in the original DS version, but really, what makes this game stupidly unfair is what I said before. the mission requirements, the objectives. Often you gotta do something specific to win, and of course the game will do the impossible to prevent you from doing that. Escort missions where NPCs get killed, protection missions where again the uncontrolled character gets killed, a boss that's immune to every single type of attack except for one, prevent this specific demon from escaping, kill this guy in a certain number of turns. I could go on, it's insane. The 3DS port was rebalanced, still quite challenging but nowhere near as incredible as this one. It's honestly unbelievable how unbalanced the original DS version can be for all the wrong reasons. And yes, the sequel is also excruciatingly painful, but I found the first one much harder for some reason. Number 7. Valkyrie Profile Covenant of the Plume. This little spin-off turned off a lot of gamers when it came out, including me. A game where balance was all over the place with some enemies being laughably easy to kill, while others were straight up broken! Yeah, that's a good word for this damn game, broken. It's a strategy RPG, grid-based, but with the AP feature the series is known for. Once you enter a battle, whether allies are nearby or not, you'll have to use one or various attacks to defeat the enemies. But of course, any attack costs action points, and often you gotta time them right because you can straight up miss if you click at the wrong time. Problem is, the enemy can do exactly the same to you. They can abuse this AP system and utterly destroy you in 1 or 2 rounds. For some strange reason, they gave some of the most average Joes tons of HP with increased stats. It's crazy. Another reason why it's so damn hard is because the game wants to force you to have your main character use the plume, a powerful item that can completely overpower one party member for an entire map, but once the map is over, that character is gone forever. It's a story mechanic and you'll be forced to use it more often than you think. Imagine having trained a specific character only to be forced to let it die at the end of the chapter. Again, it's crazy. Now, the game has multiple routes and endings. The mercenaries route seems to be the easiest, but still very grindy and difficult, so keep that in mind if you're planning on ever playing this. Number 6. Final Fantasy IV. The hardest version of this classic RPG. It's quite simple to explain actually, but you won't be able to notice it until you play it yourself. It's not like they overly complicated things in this remake or drastically changed some mechanic or whatever. They simply made it harder by increasing the stats of every single damn enemy out there. Of course, bosses are included in this statement. Square Enix said that they just wanted to challenge veterans of the original versions, but I'm guessing the testers didn't make it past a certain point, gave up and just told the company, sure, it's good. Nothing wrong with it. Well, characters take forever to learn better spells, grinding is more punishing than before, it consumes more time, enemies that should be bosses appear at random for no damn reason. To counter this, all the developers did was add some augments to characters, which can be only used once to gain extra abilities. So they felt that they will be too powerful and the game will be too easy. What was their solution? Skyrocket the difficulty by making enemies and especially bosses incredibly powerful. Yeah man, they did it on purpose. It isn't just a remake, it's the nightmare mode no one wanted or needed in the original versions. Number 5. Disgaea. Well, it's freaking Disgaea. What can I say? Everyone knows the series is stupidly hard, every single title. But at this point, everyone also knows there are many ways to exploit them and make them stupidly easy. However, accomplishing that is a huge chore and most will clearly be too lazy to do it because it requires a lot of time and patience. The fact remains that the series is known for being the king of grindfests. This is a straight port of the PS2 original version, which is the hardest Disgaea ever in my opinion. Nothing was changed in terms of difficulty, I guess making it quite faithful to the original, So while the item world carries over left intact, so does the huge spikes between one map and the other, even between areas of the same chapter. Of course, the crappy economy system carries over, especially when you need money to recover or revive someone, never knowing which types of characters or classes are better for this or that situation until you waste several battles to analyze that. I could go on, but you get the idea. Nothing changed in the challenge department, so there you go. This version is just as hard. Number 4. Mystery Dungeon: Shiren the Wanderer. This is the very first Shiren game ever made, part of the Mystery Dungeon franchise, and it's a roguelike RPG. Randomly generated areas have to be explored by advancing through their many different floors. Shiren can traverse them alone or with party members, which makes the exploration and the fighting more fun. Every time you move on a grid, the enemy moves too. And if you die at X floor, it's back to town with all levels, items, and equipment lost. So by design, the game's really challenging. Every single one of its kind is the same, often pushing many gamers away. It's not just about difficulty, it's the tedious nature of having to redo everything again, having to work your way up again in the hopes of finding better equipment or items that can help you survive not just the exploration but the grinding itself. Not just that, even if you succeed and beat a dungeon, you'll be back at level 1 again for the next one. Sure, items, money, and equipment found before carry over at least, but that doesn't change the fact that every tower will be just as difficult and even more as you advance through the game. I like this genre, but I've never been able to beat any of them. There's also Izuna the Unemployed Ninja 1 and 2, which can also be just as ridiculous. Number 3. Atrian Odyssey. Dungeon crawlers in first person are naturally hard. Most of them focus way more on gameplay, battles, and exploration than on anything else. Usually the story is just kinda there to add a bit more spice, more variety to the games, but these are gameplay driven RPGs. So in order to make the experience worthwhile in some of them, the Atrian Odyssey series being a good example, they make long labyrinths and infest them with powerful enemies. The more you progress with the game, the more enemies you'll face at once until you can't even defeat one row. And this is universally known as one of the hardest JRPG series of all time. Their punishing nature comes from the concept of abusing the job systems, creating different parties, trying out different characters, and see what works best. So leveling up everyone is the whole point of the games. As a result, making them easier wouldn't make any sense. The first Atrian Odyssey is a nightmare that can easily terrify players since the initial maps, making you backtrack to go back to town and heal over and over again until your characters are at a decent level to explore without worry. But the second map, you'll have to do exactly the same. I guess what Atlus was trying to do with this series was to create a painful version of any wizardry, but with cutesy and chibi characters. I've only played the first one, and it's insanely hard, but I've heard the third one is the hardest of the bunch. Number 2. Ronda of Swords. Developed by infamous company Success, cause they make successfully hard games, this is a rather unique tactics RPG. It has a very specific mechanic that makes it ridiculously tough. It's been a meme in this channel for years because of my strong love-hate relationship with it. For starters, you control a small party of characters against a gazillion enemies on every map. Most of them eventually start moving towards you, giving you barely any time to plan. To defeat them, you gotta take advantage of a character's movement range to create these lines across the grids with as many enemies in the middle as possible. Problem is, once you execute your turn, sometimes they can either dodge, counter, or block you, making your efforts feel worthless. The enemies can also do this to you if multiple allies are nearby. So the hardest thing about this damn game is trying to figure out how much distance you need your characters to keep from each other. Not much to still be able to aid in battle and defeat more enemies in one round, but enough to avoid getting caught in the enemy's lines. If it sounds like a chore, it's because it is. And the icing on the cake is that every single enemy seems to be either over-leveled or just way more powerful than any of your characters. It's a huge, massive grind fest that lets you retry battles infinitely and then escape before completing them, carrying over experience. That's nice. But it also has many recruitable and therefore missable characters, cause you gotta recruit them before they get slaughtered. Good luck getting them all. I love this game, but I do not recommend it. It's insultingly difficult and it will only make your life more miserable than what it probably already is. Number 1, the Dark Spire. Remember when I mentioned Wizardry? Yeah, that old iconic series from the 80s that popularized dungeon crawlers in first person with turn-based battles? Well, meet the Dark Spire, which is basically Wizardry on steroids! Yeah, you guessed it, also developed by Success. A huge love letter to the aforementioned series. You create a party with characters from 4 races, human, elf, dwarf or halfling, and off you go straight to hell! The infernal nature of this game not only comes from the love for hardcore grindfests, but also from the insane minds of the developers. Several penalties disguised as gameplay mechanics make this RPG impossibly hard. An alignment system that determines the type of characters that can join you. A class system that prevents a lot of skills and equipment to be used. An excessive amount of random encounters in large labyrinths with barely any ways to heal in between battles. Yeah, but now that I think about it, there's nothing complex about this game, it's just the nature of it. Just like with Final Fantasy IV Remake, the developers knew they were creating a massively brutal video game for those who like them. It's just ironic that sometimes the most simple RPGs out there can be 10 times more difficult than the overly complicated ones. Right guys, those were the hardest JRPGs on the Nintendo DS that I have personally played. If you played some that you think are harder than the ones that I showed in this video, let everyone know in the comments. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!